My name is Sarah Whitman, and what I am about to share will challenge everything you think you know about life, death, and the unseen world beyond. I never imagined that a single moment could rewrite the very fabric of my reality. Yet on April 12, 2023, my world shattered, literally and figuratively. What started as an ordinary day ended with me dying for 10 minutes. And in that brief eternity, I saw something that changed me forever. That morning, I woke up to the familiar sounds of my suburban neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as I went through my usual routine, feeding Max, my golden retriever, before settling at the kitchen table with the morning newspaper. My husband, David, was already out the door, heading to work at the law firm downtown, and our daughter, Emily, had left for her college classes. Everything seemed normal, but if I were being honest with myself, I had been feeling a strange heaviness in my chest for weeks. Not physical pain, something deeper. A quiet, unshakable sense of unease. It lingered at the edges of my mind, a whisper of something just out of reach. I brushed it aside. I had too much to do. Errands, bills, a mountain of laundry waiting upstairs. Life doesn't wait for uneasy feelings. By noon, I was behind the wheel, making my way through the familiar streets of downtown Charlotte, checking off my to-do list. First stop, Harris Teeter for groceries, then a quick visit to the bank. My best friend Linda had invited me for coffee at a cafe near her office, and I promised myself I'd make time for that too. I should have noticed the signs. The way my hands trembled slightly as I reached for my keys. The hollow feeling in my stomach, despite having eaten breakfast. The odd pressure in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm, thick and electric. But I ignored it. At 2:47 p.m., I was driving down Providence Road, my favorite Fleetwood Mac song playing softly on the radio. The sun cast long shadows across the pavement, turning the sky a golden hue. It was one of those moments that made you pause, made you appreciate the quiet beauty of the world. Then it happened. A flash of movement in my peripheral vision. A deafening screech of tires. Before I could react, a truck barreled through a red light. Time slowed. My hands tightened around the wheel. My breath caught in my throat. My mind screamed, "No, no, no. This isn't happening." Impact. The force slammed into my car like an explosion. Metal crunched. Glass shattered. My body lurched violently, my seatbelt digging into my ribs as my car spun like a lifeless doll across the asphalt. In that fraction of a second, my entire life flashed before me. Emily's laughter when she was little, the warmth of David's embrace on cold nights, the smell of my mother's apple pie during Christmas. Then nothing. Darkness. Silence. A weightless floating sensation overtook me. I tried to breathe, but there was no air. I tried to move, but I had no body. Yet somehow I was still aware. I could see my mangled car resting at an unnatural angle against a traffic light pole. The windshield was completely shattered. The metal twisted beyond recognition. I saw paramedics rushing toward me, their voices sharp with urgency. I was staring at my own body. It didn't make sense. I was still me, still thinking, still aware. But I wasn't in my body anymore. I was above it, looking down at the wreckage like a detached observer. My car was completely destroyed. Crumpled metal, shattered glass, smoke curling from the engine. A web of cracks spread across the windshield like a fractured spider's web. And inside, slumped against the deflated airbags, was me. I should have felt pain. I should have been struggling to breathe, my ribs aching from the impact. But I felt nothing. Just an eerie weightlessness, as if I were drifting in some invisible current, tethered to nothing at all. Sirens blared in the distance, their piercing wail growing closer. Voices, urgent, panicked, cut through the noise. "She's not responding," someone shouted. Another voice, steadier but strained, ordered, "Get the stretcher ready. We need to intubate now." I tried to speak, to tell them I was right here, but no sound came out. My lips weren't moving. I had no lips to move. Panic gripped me. No. No, no, no. This isn't right. I have to wake up. This isn't happening. I forced myself to move, to reach for my body, to grab onto anything solid, but I had no hands, no arms, no weight. The world below me felt distant, like I was watching a movie through frosted glass. I could see everything, hear everything, but I was no longer a part of it. Then the air around me began to shift. The sounds of the paramedics, the distant honking of cars stuck in traffic, the static from the police radios, all of it started to fade. It wasn't immediate like flipping a switch. It was gradual, like someone was slowly turning the volume down on reality. My vision blurred. The golden light of the late afternoon sky twisted into something darker, deeper. The world around me peeled away, layer by layer, like I was being pulled from one dimension into another. And then silence. A silence so absolute it rang in my ears, pressing against me like a heavy weight. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the absence of everything. I wasn't floating above the accident anymore. I wasn't anywhere. There was no sky, no ground, no color, no shape. Just an endless, suffocating nothingness. And I was alone. I tried to scream. Nothing. I tried to breathe. Nothing. A deep primal terror clawed its way through me. Is this death? Is this it? Am I just gone? Then something shifted in the void. First, I thought it was my imagination. But no, the darkness wasn't empty. It had depth, like something was waiting just beyond my perception. A presence. It wasn't human, but it wasn't unfamiliar either. It was everywhere and nowhere all at once. It felt like something watching me, but not with eyes. More like it was aware of me, surrounding me, pulling me forward. I wanted to run. But where? There was no direction, no escape. A new sensation crept over me. A heaviness, thick and cloying, pressing against my very being. It wasn't pain, but it wasn't comfort either. It was as if the very fabric of existence had changed, like I had stepped into a place I wasn't meant to be. And then a light. Faint at first, a pinprick in the distance. But it grew, expanding outward, pulsing with a warmth I hadn't realized I was desperate for. It wasn't just light, it was alive. It called to me, not with words but with something deeper, something I felt in my soul. I had no body, but I was moving, or maybe the light was moving toward me. I couldn't tell. Space and time no longer existed in any way that made sense. And then, through the overwhelming silence, came the first sound since I'd left my body. The voice echoed through my soul, not through sound, but through something deeper, something that resonated within the very core of my existence. Sarah. I knew that voice. It wasn't just familiar. It was woven into the fabric of my being, as if I had known it before I was even born. It carried power, yet there was no forcefulness in it. Instead, it wrapped around me, gentle but undeniable, like a tide that couldn't be resisted. I should have been terrified. A moment ago, I had been lost in a void, swallowed by the absence of everything. Now, I was standing in a place that defied explanation. The darkness had faded, replaced by something vast, infinite, and yet somehow personal. There was no floor beneath me, yet I stood. There was no sky above, yet light radiated from everywhere at once. The very air, or whatever this place held, was thick, alive, pulsing with a presence that was far greater than anything I had ever known. And then I saw him. A figure emerged from the light, but he was more than a figure. He wasn't just standing before me. He was in everything, through everything, in everything, through everything, beyond everything. Ash. And his asterisk eyes. They weren't just eyes. They were galaxies at eternity itself, depths of love, power and knowing me. Couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak, yet he already knew every word I wanted to say. My entire being trembled, not out of fear, but out of awe, a recognition so deep it shattered every question, every doubt, every fragment of who I thought I was. Without thinking, I fell to my knees, or at least I felt as if I did. There was no gravity here, no weight, yet I bowed before him. Not because I was forced to, because there was no other response possible. You are here because you must see. His words echoed through my very soul, reverberating like waves in an ocean I hadn't known existed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, not because I was trapped, but because I was overwhelmed. The very essence of his voice held weight. Not in the way sound does, but like truth pressing against my spirit, undeniable and absolute. Then the world around us shifted. It was as if reality itself had been peeled back, revealing something that had always been there, but hidden, unseen by human eyes. The light that had surrounded us stretched and twisted, revealing layers of existence I had never imagined. It was like watching the universe fold itself open, exposing secrets that had been locked away since the beginning of time. I wasn't standing in a void anymore. I saw Earth, but not the way I had known it. Below me, woven like a living tapestry, was humanity itself. Not just buildings and streets, but souls moving, pulsing, connected by threads of energy, threads of light. Every person, every thought, every action was part of something larger. Some glowed with radiance, others flickered dimly, as if struggling to hold on to their connection. Then I saw something else. A rift. A jagged, gaping wound in the energy, like a tear in the very fabric of existence. Darkness poured from it, thick and consuming, writhing like living shadows, slithering into the spaces where the light was weakest. My chest tightened. What was I looking at? I turned to him, but he was already watching me. His eyes filled with both sorrow and something even deeper, urgency. "You must understand," he said. The moment he spoke, the scene changed again. Now I saw history unfolding, but not as events in time. It was alive, moving in layers like an endless stream of choices and consequences, prayers and battles fought in realms unseen. I saw kingdoms rise and fall, civilizations crumble, and through it all, an invisible war waged in the shadows. A war not of nations, but of light and darkness, faith and deception. And then I saw them. A group of people standing together, their presence unlike anything else I had witnessed. They were glowing, their very essence radiating something pure, powerful, unshakable. But they were surrounded, besieged. Darkness clawed at them, pressing in from all sides, whispering lies, trying to crush them under the weight of suffering and despair. I could feel it, the weight of oppression, centuries of pain, chains both seen and unseen. And yet they did not fall. Their prayers burned like fire, cutting through the darkness. Their faith held them together, an unbreakable force that pushed back against the consuming void. "Who are they?" I whispered, my voice barely more than a thought. He turned to me, his gaze both piercing and filled with love. "They are my chosen. They have been tried, tested, and refined through fire." I gasped, the weight of his words hitting me like a tidal wave. The suffering, the history, the endless battles. It wasn't because they were weak. It was because they were strong. The world had tried to erase them, silence them, break them, because the enemy feared them. But why? I choked out, my voice breaking. His expression darkened, not with anger, but with something deeper, heavier. A sorrow that stretched across eternity. Because of what they carry. And in that moment I saw it. Not with my eyes, but with my soul. A heritage of strength, passed down through generations, woven into the very DNA of their existence. A divine authority, one that could not be stolen, could not be extinguished, only forgotten. "They have been told they are less," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "But I say they are more." Tears burned my eyes. Though I had no body, I felt them. A flood of understanding, grief, and awakening crashed over me all at once. How many had been made to believe the lie? How many had been blinded to their own purpose? I looked back at the vision before me, the glowing figures standing against the storm, their presence a defiance against everything that had tried to destroy them. And suddenly I saw them rising. One by one they began to stand, their eyes opening, their backs straightening. They were remembering. The chains of deception breaking. The lies falling away. The darkness losing its grip. I turned to him, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and awe. What must I do? His eyes met mine, galaxies of fire and love burning in them. "You must tell them. You must tell them." Jesus' words thundered through my being, reverberating like an unshakable truth. There was no room for doubt, no space for hesitation. And then everything shifted. The space around us, once filled with radiant light, began to change. It was as if the universe itself had peeled back another layer, revealing something hidden just beneath the surface of reality. The golden glow faded, replaced by something darker, heavier. I wasn't afraid, but a deep, unsettling weight settled in my chest. "What must I see, Lord?" I asked, though my lips never moved. Jesus turned toward me, his gaze filled with both sorrow and urgency. "Look." And in an instant, the world before me unfolded like a tapestry of time itself. I saw Earth, but not the one I had known. It was changing, shifting before my eyes, revealing events that had not yet come to pass. At first I saw hope, a great awakening stirring among those who had long been oppressed. I saw people remembering who they were, standing taller, their faith burning brighter than before. Chains were breaking, spiritual chains, generational chains, chains of deception. But then the darkness returned. Thick, slithering shadows spread across the earth, moving through cities, nations, even into homes. It was like a poison, creeping into hearts and minds, sowing division, hatred, and confusion. I saw chaos in the streets, people turning on one another, not knowing why. Families torn apart not by war or famine, but by something deeper. A spiritual blindness, a great deception. "Lord, what is happening?" cried out. Jesus lifted his hand, and suddenly, I saw the enemy's plan laid bare. Lies were being spread, crafted so carefully, so subtly, that people believed them without question. I saw a war not of nations but of the spirit. Dark forces moved unseen, whispering into the ears of leaders, turning them against their own people. Laws were being written that silenced truth, that erased identity, that made people forget who they were meant to be. And at the center of it all, black people. I saw them targeted, not with weapons but with distractions, with falsehoods designed to weaken them, to break their unity, to strip them of their purpose. I saw youth being led astray, taught that their faith was meaningless, that their prayers held no power. I saw men and women exhausted, burdened under systems designed to keep them from rising. "They have been deceived," Jesus said, his voice carrying the weight of eternity itself. "But they must awaken." Then, just as despair threatened to consume me, the vision shifted again. I saw fires igniting across the world. Not fires of destruction but of revival. In homes, in churches, in streets, in quiet places where no one was watching, people were praying again. I saw voices rising, not in protest but in proclamation. "They are remembering," Jesus said. "They are reclaiming what was stolen." I saw leaders emerging, not from wealth or power, but from faith and conviction. I saw black men and women stepping into their roles as warriors, healers, and teachers, no longer bound by the falsehoods they had been fed for generations. "They have been told they are weak," Jesus continued, "but I say they are strong." His voice rang with authority, undeniable, unshakable truth. "They have been told they are broken, but I say they are my chosen." Tears filled my eyes as I watched this great awakening unfold. The enemy had tried to destroy them because of what they carried, but they would not be destroyed. They would rise. Then the vision changed one last time. I saw doors, countless doors standing open. Some people were walking through, stepping into the light, but others stood frozen, afraid, uncertain. And worse, some were walking away. "The time is short," Jesus said, his voice heavy with warning. "The door will not stay open forever." I saw what would happen if too many refused to wake up. Darkness spreading, faith withering, entire generations lost simply because they had not answered the call. The weight of it all crushed me. "Lord, what can I do?" My voice cracked with desperation. He turned to me one last time, his gaze piercing through everything I was. "You must tell them. You do not have to make them believe you. You only have to speak the truth." Then everything shattered. The light, the visions, the presence of eternity itself. A violent force yanked me backward. The golden radiance, the voices of eternity, the weight of truth itself. It all collapsed in an instant. My soul was being squeezed, pulled, crushed, forced back into a space far too small for what I had just become. Then impact. Pain slammed into me, raw and merciless. My chest heaved, my lungs burned, and I felt like I was drowning in air. The once boundless light was gone, replaced by something heavy, something confining my body. My eyes flew open, and a single undeniable truth burst from my lips, echoing through the sterile hospital room. "Jesus is God." The sound of my own voice startled me. It was hoarse, cracked, but real. I was back. My vision blurred as fluorescent lights above flickered, stabbing painfully into my retinas. The harsh beeping of machines drilled into my skull. My skin burned with an unnatural heat, my muscles locked in rigid tension. A gasp, then a sharp sob. "Sarah!" I turned my head slowly, painfully toward the voice. "David." His face was streaked with tears, his eyes wild with relief and disbelief. He gripped my hand so tightly that I thought my bones might snap, but I barely felt it. "Oh my God, Sarah, you're awake." His voice broke. A doctor and 2 nurses rushed to my bedside. Machines beeped furiously as alarms blared. "She's responding," one of them called out. Another pressed a stethoscope against my chest, speaking quickly, but I barely heard them. Their words faded into the background as reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. I was here, but I had been there. I had been in the presence of Jesus Christ himself. I had seen the unseen, heard the divine, felt the unshakable truth of existence. And now here I was, confined to this frail, broken vessel of flesh. "Sarah, can you hear me?" The doctor leaned into my line of sight, his expression careful, cautious, like he was afraid I might slip away again. I swallowed, my throat raw, my body still shaking. I nodded slowly. "You were gone," David whispered, his voice barely holding together. "For 10 minutes. The doctors, they thought." His voice cracked and he buried his face in my hand, holding it like a lifeline. 10 minutes. It felt like I had lived an eternity. I tried to speak, but my lips trembled. My mind was overflowing, flooded with the visions, the warnings, the undeniable call that had been placed upon me. I saw him. I managed, my voice barely more than a breath. David lifted his head, his eyes locking onto mine. "Who?" I swallowed hard. "Jesus." A heavy silence filled the room. The doctor hesitated. The nurses exchanged glances. But I didn't care. I had seen the truth and there was no turning back. I had been sent back with a message, and the world needed to hear it. I died. For 10 minutes my heart stopped. My body lay lifeless. But my soul? It traveled beyond this world, into a realm more real than anything I had ever known. I stood before Jesus Christ himself. His presence was not just light. It was truth, love, and eternity wrapped into one. He showed me the battle we do not see, the forces at work trying to steal, deceive, and destroy. But he also showed me hope, the awakening that is coming, the people he has chosen to rise. When I returned to my body, nothing was the same. I couldn't unsee what I had witnessed. I couldn't ignore his words. They must rise. I was sent back with a mission to tell you that faith is not just a belief. It is a battle, and the time to stand firm is now. Do you believe that Jesus is speaking to us? Do you believe that God is calling you right now to walk in faith, to reject the lies of this world, and to step into the light? I want to pray for you. If you are ready to embrace your faith, if you feel God pulling on your heart, leave your prayer in the comments. I will read them. I will pray for you. This message is urgent. If you believe in the power of faith, share this with someone who needs it. Like this video, subscribe for more testimonies, and help spread God's truth. The time is short. Will you answer the call?